Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, if you listen to the podcast, you know every single one of these sponsors I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I highly recommend that you use them as well. So take 3 minutes, that's it. Listen to our shout outs, then listen to our guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be very glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Huddle. For years, I used Huddle as a football coach. After I became an AD, we were a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved all the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Snap Mobile. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school and it was great. I'm telling you, it works. You can go to their website, check out all their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's Snap Raise. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You put one of their units in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be a magnet for kids, even for teachers, coaches. How about parents, sponsors, alums? You can see all their great work at vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day, whether it's schedules, rosters, results. For me, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is incredible. You got to see it to believe it. Go to homecampus.com for more information. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to thank our friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team show you how to create world-class social media content in seconds. Gipper's used and trusted by over 20,000 high schools and colleges, and whether it's a simple social media post to celebrate a win or an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things your school is doing, the Gipper team is going to have you up and running in seconds. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com for more information. Once again, don't forget to mention the podcast, Gipper.com. We want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule a live demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. Very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while he completed his master's degree, he also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Go to the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration for more information. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Hometown. It's not just ticketing anymore. Go to hometown.com because they are changing the game for schools and organizations with their suite of solutions that includes, oh, by the way, digital ticketing, but it also includes fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction, and a whole lot more. If you're an athletic director, a coach, or a school administrator, Hometown is going to help you save time, raise more money, and bring your community together. For more information on all of that, go to hometown.com. That's hometown.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. ADs already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns and address them, but they're also going to connect you to that 98%, that silent majority that love your program. And having that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. It's one of our back to college episodes and kind of a neat aspect. Our guest today is Dr. Chelsea Ale. She's the professor of sport management, want to get that out right, at a place called the University of Alabama. And part of my claim to fame, I don't know if it's Chelsea's, but one of my claims to fame is I actually hired Chelsea a few years ago at our school as our head diving coach. Hopefully she'll talk about that with some fondness. But Dr. Chelsea Ale, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. And yes, it is nice to have a full circle moment where someone who hired me just as a high school diving coach can now refer to me as Dr. Ale. So I'm definitely excited to talk to you a little bit more about this and see how far we've all come.
Oh no, absolutely. I can't wait to dive into that journey. Um, let's do it. Chelsea, we like to have our listeners, we like to give them a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own high school and college days, and then we'll take a break before we hear about your career. But what's the Chelsea Ale origin story?
Chelsea, yeah, that's a good question. So my dad was in the Navy when I was growing up, so I moved a lot. So I can't necessarily like say that there's a specific home for me. But I was born in Orlando, Florida, and then I always wanted to be an Olympian. Like that was my goal. I thought I was going to do gymnastics. I was a swimmer. I was going to be an Olympian. And we actually traveled the country in a motorhome, moved up to Washington, and we went to sign up for gymnastics, and there was nowhere to do it. And I saw diving and I was like, well, diving combines my love of swimming and gymnastics together. I'll try that. And then I was hooked and I became obsessed with diving ever since. My parents moved me to the number one team in the country to train with them. And then we moved to the number two team in the country to train with them. So I was very fortunate that my parents were able to allow me that opportunity. I competed nationally and internationally. So I went to the Junior World Championships. I actually got to run the Olympic torch as well up the Washington, D.C. Capitol steps. It's in my office at work. And then I went, so I was really competitive, I guess, with diving. Unfortunately, injuries always seem to get in the way of me actually achieving my Olympic goal. But I went to college at North Carolina State University and was a diver there. And then that kind of transitioned into, I guess, my professional background. So I won't go into that quite yet. But diving and sports has always just been a major part of my life in every facet. And I definitely would say I'm not the person, or I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for all of my sacrifices that my parents made and then all of my like skill sets and knowledge that I got from diving. So it's a quick little background of me. But my undergraduate degree is in sport management from NC State. My master's and PhD are both from Florida State University in sport management as well.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go back to the diving part of diving. Now, I because again, this speaks to Chelsea's abilities as a coach. We had a pool, but we didn't have a diving facility, so our athletes had to go to Florida State University and use their facility. Um, Share with our listeners who have even less knowledge about diving than me, your competitive experience. I know there's platform diving and then there's diving off the board. Did you do both or did you specialize? Share that part of your life.
That actually is a great question. A lot of people think when I say I'm a diver that I do scuba diving. So I'll say that I'm a diver and they say, "Oh, how deep do you go?" Or, "Oh, I've been to the coral reefs before." I'm like, "Well, not quite the same type of diving." So I'm definitely happy to clarify. But there's springboard and platform. So there's the 1 meter springboard, which is the low one, and then 3 meter springboard, which is a little bit higher. And then for platform, you have the 5 meter, 7.5 meter, and 10 meter. So you can do different ones. For me, my specialty was platform, so I was highly competitive with that. You have different types of divers. Some are more springboard divers, some are more platform. but I was definitely a platform diver because I was long and lean. It just looked really pretty in the air, and I wasn't quite as strong. And if you were a springboard diver, typically you're a little bit stronger, and I was just not. Now I actually do master's diving sometimes, and with that, I am a little bit lower on the platform, and I focus more on springboard because my body doesn't like me as much as it used to. But yes, I used to teach diving to people that didn't have diving pools. And even when COVID happened, I had to spend a couple months teaching diving over Zoom, which is very interesting.
Oh, wow. I don't even know if how I would do that. Track and football were my sports. As far as a coach, it'd be tough to do it over Zoom. Um, this just popped into my head. I remember as a kid, and for listeners, I am much older than Dr. Ale. I remember watching, the Olympics growing up, and they'd always have, the swimming, the diving, the track, and everything. But um, nowadays, fast forward, those many years, it seems like it's almost a completely different sport. The divers back in the day, they would stand on the platform or maybe take a couple of hop skips and jump off the springboard. Now, I mean, they're doing handstands before they dive and things like that. Um, what are your thoughts on where diving has gone and where is it going? Is it going to get even more, this is my word, athletic than it already is?
I mean, it's very true. I think about when I was an athlete, I was one of the top in the country. I was really good at diving. And now I watch these girls, these athletes that are doing these dives that I would have never dreamed of being able to do. You just think with all the technology and resources that are available, the athletes in every sport are just getting so much better and more successful. But even the technology on diving boards, I mean, they used to dive on wooden diving boards and they used to practice diving into dirt. I remember when I was a kid, I did a research project on that, and it's called like a dry board. We do it now onto foam pits or onto like mats. But when they were young or a long time ago when diving first started, they would dive on wooden boards and dive into dirt. And so it's come a long way now. And now we've got all sorts of different resources. We understand the physics behind diving, the biomechanics, the all what you're supposed to do with your nutrition. Everything is so focused on science now, which is amazing because these athletes are just getting better and better. And even if I wanted to compete with them in my heyday and the ones that are compared to now, they would all beat me very easily. But the diving boards themselves now are so much more flexible and they give a lot more spring to them. And so athletes are able to accomplish so much. And even if you look at Red Bull cliff diving, the amount of flips and twists that those athletes are doing is just constantly getting more and more. And people are always pushing themselves to the limit. So I'll be interested to see, 10, 20, 30 years from now, what it looks like. Maybe we'll have divers doing 7 flips. I don't know. At some point, there's going to be a stopping point where they can't do that much. But it is amazing what the body can do and how much the sport has progressed, even in the amount of time that I've been involved in it. I mean, I've been involved for about 30 years now, not to make myself sound old, but it's changed a lot and it's very impressive. But I think I am glad that I did it when I did it because the dives are really hard now, and I feel like that would scare me a little bit more.
Well, we don't have time to go into it now. I'm definitely going to Google diving into dirt when we get off this podcast. That's crazy. As a junior high kid, this is how old I am. I remember high jumping into sawdust, and that was hard enough. Diving into dirt, goodness gracious. Let's go and jump ahead to your college days. You mentioned that goal. You wanted to compete at the Olympics. Compete at the highest level. Injuries kind of got in the way. I joke. Injuries along with a lack of talent kept me out of the NFL. Um, as you were looking at your post college career, what am I going to do? Where did the sport management and the leadership and ultimately were you thinking about getting your PhD back in your undergrad days?
In undergrad, I don't think I was planning on getting my PhD. I was kind of sick of school, but I was like, I'm going to get my master's. And then I finished my master's in a year and I was like, I could get my PhD. And then I was like, I don't really want to be in school any longer. And so I took a 10-year break before I actually decided to go back. Thank you, COVID, for convincing me to change careers and getting my PhD. But in undergraduate, no, that was not my plan. My master's was all that I wanted to do. But I always wanted to be involved in sports. That was something that was really important to me. Diving was obviously a huge passion of mine. I'm obsessed with the Olympics and anything that has to do with the Olympics. And so when I thought about what my future career was, I didn't quite know what it would look like, but I knew I wanted it to be something in sports. And then my diving career ended, not the way that I would have liked it to. And I actually couldn't step foot on a pool deck for a little bit because I had some like bad feelings about being around the sport. But when I went and got my master's degree, I started helping Florida State's diving program, working with them, realizing that I do love the sport. And because I never got to be an Olympian, I was like, okay, how do I make Olympians and how do I help create more Olympians? Because I learned a lot through my struggles, through the things I did well, but the things that went really badly for me. And I wanted to take that knowledge and sort of help other athletes and be the coach that I wish I had had. Not that my coaches were bad by any means, but there's a lot of things that I learned that I think I've done better because of my knowledge. And so I was like, okay, how can I use all this information that I have into be a positive thing for me?
Oh, no, great. And that's a great transition into our next segment, which we're going to start after we take a break. Our guest today is Dr. Chelsea Ale. She's a professor of sport management at the University of Alabama, longtime diver as an athlete, as a diving coach. We're going to hear a little bit about that and more. But let's take that break. We're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos, and our parents love the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Mobile. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school with great success. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's snapraise.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're visiting today with Dr. Chelsea Ale, professor of sport management at the University of Alabama. Chelsea, you shared your journey, bouncing around the country, diving competitions, the dream of being an Olympian, but you got into the academia side of life, but you still got into coaching. Can you share a little bit about that part of your journey and how it, in a way, led you to your present position at Alabama?
Absolutely. So when I was a graduate assistant at Florida State University, I got back into helping with coaching, being part of the collegiate side of it. Like I said, I had decided I wanted to help Olympians, but I also was like, I want to be a college coach. I loved the college age of athletes, helping them because I feel like when you're a college coach, you're a mom, a babysitter, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a bus driver, like you are everything. But to me, that seemed like a really great spot to be. And I also wanted to help the athletes that are trying to reach that Olympic potential. And so once I graduated with my master's, I did a couple of little jobs here and there, but I moved back to Maryland, which is where I went to high school. So I do claim Maryland as home, even though I don't really have like a set home. But I went back there and I started coaching club there for Montgomery Dive Club. And I was in charge of the lessons programs of 4 different facilities, in charge of helping all the coaches there. So we had about 450 divers, a handful of coaches, and I really was working with trying to help that organization get more structure and then help the club program that I came from. And it was a great experience. I got to learn a lot from it. And then while I was there, I actually got offered the job to be the head coach at Western Kentucky University. So I went to Western Kentucky University for 2 years. I was there and it was definitely very interesting and very eye-opening to me. I think going from North Carolina State University and Florida State University athletic departments to going to Western Kentucky, I assume that they had people to do all these things. Then all of a sudden I realized I was in charge of swim lessons and recruiting weekends and food and fundraising and all these other things. It was a great experience for me, learned a lot, met some amazing athletes. Unfortunately, our program got cut. And so I had to find a new home for all of my athletes first and foremost. And then I did not find a new home for me. And so after that, I went to Ohio University. So I went there and I was the head coach at Ohio University. And while I was there, I also started working for a camp called Rip Fest in Indiana. And they were a small diving camp that had camps and clinics throughout the year, but they also had a long summer camp. And basically, what I did is I spent the whole summer in Indiana, and we had 12 weeks of camp over the summer where people lived with us full time. We had Olympians, Olympic hopefuls, kids who had never dove before, masters athletes, and I pretty much did anything and everything. I was in charge of like 10 people's jobs. And so while I was at Ohio University, and I was trying to organize a lot of stuff remotely, I realized it didn't make sense for me to have a full-time job in Ohio and a full-time job in Indiana and try and make the two of them work. And so while I liked collegiate athletics, I felt that, okay, maybe it's time for me to focus on this camp side of it, helping all like thousands of athletes a year and everything. And so I actually left Ohio University, moved to Indiana to help run RipFest. It started off it was a good size camp, but we turned it into the world's largest diving camp. So full time, we had athletes who lived with us year round. Like I said, we had camps and clinics all year. Olympians, Olympic hopefuls from all over the world came and stayed with us. And I pretty much was a one woman show doing 10 people's jobs all over the place. I learned an insane amount. It was great, but after working about 100 hours a week, because I lived where I worked, I was a little burnt out. Got a call from Florida State and said, do you want to come be our club coach in Tallahassee? And I was like, I don't know if I want to move back to Tallahassee. 2 weeks later, sure enough, it's back in Tallahassee, moved there. And then I was in charge of all of the high schools in Tallahassee. So McClay, where, obviously you hired me. And then every single other public and private school, I coached all their high school kids, coached all their lesson athletes, multiple different skill levels and skill sets. And I also helped with the college program. And then COVID happened and everything shut down. And it was kind of okay, what do we do now? Is our diving program ever going to start back up? It actually didn't come back up for a year and a half. And so I had to figure out what was my next step. And now I'm in academia.
Before we go there, I want to go back. Now, it's my understanding when you were, coaching for us at the McClay, I was the athletic director at the McClay school. We were an independent school, but you, and now that you mentioned it, I kind of remember that you were also the coach for the other, most of which public high school diving programs. That was more of an entrepreneurial effort on your part. Am I right? It wasn't like Leon County Schools hired you as their dive coach, or am I wrong about that?
So I was Tomahawk Diving's head coach, director of operations, and then individually, you hired me for McClay. Florida High hired me for them, and then Leon County's athletic director hired me for all of the high schools. And so I didn't have to do it, but I wanted to be the one who was actually teaching everyone how to dive successfully and making sure that they were doing it in a safe way. So I just kind of added that to my list. It wasn't something I had to do, but it just was something that I wanted to do to make sure that I was helping the athletes. And then also I recruited those athletes to kind of come dive for me in the club as well sometimes.
No, and that was kind of the point that I was getting at is, you had your job. You were at Tomahawk Diving, but on your own, you reached out, and again, my word was in an entrepreneurial way, and created this, opportunity for the high schools to have a real diving coach. I remember when we made an appointment. You called me up and we had you come in, but I was just going. I was thinking, this person is, I was thinking like a NCAA. Why does she want to coach at our little school? Now we had a pretty good athletic program, that, but it would just was just a great example to me for a younger person starting their career or an older person about, hey, here's a need. I can fill that with my skill set. And then you went out and did a great job. I know our kid, had a wonderful experience, working with you as athlete and coach.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And a lot of your divers have been successful. Kendall went on to Auburn, and Max, who used to dive for you, is now going to go to Florida State next year as well.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Okay. Um, okay, let's go and jump back into that career path. You made the decision to earn that PhD. Um, and now you're at the University of Alabama. We're going to talk about Alabama in our next segment, but take us up to that point. How did all of that come together?
So that is a great question as well. Like I said, COVID happened and I had to think about what was made the most sense for me. And I realized that for me, coaching diving wasn't just about the sport of diving. It's going to sound really cheesy, but I loved like molding better humans. Like I liked being a leader, a role model, feeling like I was doing a lot to help them and help them succeed in their lives in all facets. And so I was like, well, what position can kind of supersede a COVID or pandemic or something? And I was like, well, a professor actually would be able to do that. They'd be able to help collegiate age people, help them be successful for the rest of their lives or set them up for success. And so I figured, get my PhD, I have time now, and then go on this trajectory from there. And so while I was getting my PhD, I was actually working full time at the Civic Center in Tallahassee, where we have all of our concerts and shows and basketball games. I was teaching classes at Florida State in the sport management department, and then I was working full time on my PhD. Well, I'm a little proud. I graduated. I'm the first person to graduate with a full time job from Florida State's sport management PhD program. So that was very challenging for me. Very tough. I think it was the hardest 4 years of my life and the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I don't know if I would go back and do it again, but I'm very glad that I'm here. But then I was on the job market. I was like, okay, what am I doing now? And so I started interviewing and looking for jobs because I'm a little bit older than someone who just went undergrad, grad, PhD. I thought about what was the most important thing to me. And it wasn't just getting a next stepping stone job. I wanted a forever home. You never know what life's going to happen, but I didn't want to just take a job, turn around, take another job, turn around. And so I actually only applied for the positions in the places that I knew I would actually stay or want to stay. And I only really kind of thought about where I could see myself staying for longer than a year. And so when I started actually interviewing at places, I got a handful of job offers and my advisor's like, you're turning them down? And I was like, well, I don't know. And so it was weird because most people don't turn down job offers when you're getting them. But I wanted to make sure that I put myself in the right spot. And when I came to interview with Alabama, I tell people this here. I was like, I'm never going to end up in Alabama. This is not for me. And then I showed up and everyone here was so nice and so welcoming and so sweet. And the stereotypes we have of Alabama are not really true in Tuscaloosa. And it's been a great experience. But if you had asked me 5 years ago that I was be professor at Alabama, I don't think that I would expect that. But it's been a really nice shift. And it's nice because our program's brand new. And so I'm able to help kind of develop it and make it better. And that's one of the things I loved about coaching diving was making programs a lot more successful. And so now I get to help do that here.
Oh, wow. Again, I just love to hear the story of how things come together. Let's go and take another break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you to share, for somebody who might be interested, why should they choose the University of Alabama for their sport management program and all the other great things that you can share about the program. Let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards or display your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. You put one of their units in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be a magnet for your student athletes, your coaches, even your teachers, your parents, how about sponsors and alumni. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. For me, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is fantastic. You got to see it to believe it. Go to homecampus.com to find out more. Homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team show you how to create world-class social media content for your school. Whether it's a simple social media post to celebrate a big win or an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things that your school's doing in the community, the team at Gipper is going to have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. How easy? Well, it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. Gipper.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're speaking with my former diving coach at the McClay School, who's gone on to wildly greater things as the sport management professor at the University of Alabama. We're visiting today with Dr. Chelsea Ale. Chelsea, you shared how you ended up at Alabama. Um, what is what is your daily routine like, or your semester routine, and share a little bit about what you think makes the University of Alabama program so special.
Absolutely. So I can't say that I have a traditional day to day all the time because as a professor, there's always different things that are happening or popping up. But my main job is obviously just to be a professor. So I teach 4 classes a semester right now. I taught one over summer or over winter, and I'll teach 2 over summer, and then other ones as well. So I teach sales classes, social issues, finance classes. I teach collegiate athletics as well, and a handful of other variety of classes. And so my main job is to be a professor, educate people, and teach them. And then on top of that, I do academic advising. So I help the students figure out what their internships are going to be, what their future jobs or goals are, what classes they're going to take, and I help them try and navigate and make the most sense of their day-to-day or what their semester will look like. I'm also the co-advisor for the Girls Club. So if you do come to the University of Alabama, we have 2 different sports organizations. We have Alabama Sport Management Association, which is an amazing organization for any student. And then we also have the Girls Club, which is a female-run sports club as well. And so I am the co-advisor for that, but girls and boys can both join. It's just a great resource for them. And then I also help with the diving team every now and then with that too. I've been on hiring committees, all sorts of other fun things. But on a day-to-day basis, it's pretty different. But that's kind of the nice thing. I'm always changing what I'm doing. I'm making the class interactive, talking. And then as far as Alabama, our program actually started last fall. So we are only a year and a half old. We have grown incredibly fast. So much so where we just have been spending time hiring new staff to come join us, trying to find the right fit that would be part of our program. Where some people worry that they don't have lines to actually hire new staff, we're fighting for more and more professors to join our program because it's growing so big. We have amazing professors that all have different backgrounds and resources, which is really nice because I obviously love diving and that's my excitement. Other people care about other sports and things that are more interested to them. And there's a lot of autonomy and support in what we do. We can make the classes however we think makes the most sense for us, which is amazing because it allows us to be really creative with getting the students engaged. And I know none of us are like, okay, you have to memorize these terms and these definitions. It's more about turning what you're learning into real world applications and making you think critically about how sports can help your life, how life helps sports, how you can be successful in your future career. So it's not how do you get a good grade in this class? It's how can I set you up for success in your future career, whatever that might be. And so we've been really trying to make it a great thing. We make our master's program is becoming a lot more successful as well. And then obviously we're the University of Alabama. I mean, we don't have any sports that are successful, right? We've got nothing. No, we are phenomenal at pretty much every sport that we do. And because of that, we have amazing resources. We have great connections. The academic advisors at Alabama work really closely with us as professors to make sure the student athletes are getting what they need, that they're not running into any issues with conflicts and stuff. But I can't imagine, I guess Florida State, but I can't imagine other schools that are quite as good at athletics and academics together that have such a good relationship because our students get internships constantly. They're getting manager jobs, they're getting jobs in the real world. We have so many students that come back and they actually give lectures for us and work for major sports organizations and things. And so it's been really great, even though our program's tiny, or not tiny, new. It is really doing well and really successful, and the people seem to love it. And our reputation around campus is really positive.
All right. I've got kind of a weird question here. Now, you mentioned the master's program. Is there also an undergraduate, a bachelor's program in sport management?
Yes, so the undergraduate program is what started a year and a half ago. And then the master's program has been actually going on a little bit longer, but it's becoming a little bit more popular as well. And so starting next fall, we should have a total of about 1,200 students in both the master's and undergraduate program after 2 years of being around.
Okay, here's my question. Okay, 100 years ago, when I was in college, um, sport management, athletic administration, those things didn't exist. If you wanted to be a teacher, you took the education courses and you were a math teacher, an English teacher, in my case, a PE teacher, and you took those PE courses. Um, and then you became a coach, and then maybe along the way, you showed a skill set to become an athletic director. There was one course. It was called Administration of Athletics that I remember taking as an undergrad. Master's programs were more about teaching. There was no master's about coaching. Now, an undergraduate student can get a bachelor's degree in athletic administration. Th that's a different discussion. Here's my question. As you're putting together curriculum for the students that, theoretically they want to be a high school or a college administrator or do something in the athletic world, how are you, what's the fine tuning process for courses? And then within those courses, the actual curriculum and experiences that you're going to be sharing with the students? There, I told you it was a long question.
I do think it's important what you said. I mean, my dad always told me, he's like, you could just get a degree in PE coaching. I mean, that's what sport management is, right? Or when I tell people that I'm a sport management major, they're like, what are you going to do? Be a coach somewhere? I'm like, well, actually, yes, but there's a lot more to it. So because we are newer, we are talking a lot about different courses we want to add, and we're very strategic about adding ones that are going to be beneficial to help people succeed in their future, right? We don't just want to have classes that are filler classes that they're not really getting a lot out of. And we want to be very specific about what we're doing. So when we have classes, we want it to be something that is going to help you in your future, to make you think critically, to help you handle different issues, conflicts. Administration, there's so much more to it. Like, being a leader is more than just reading a textbook. You have to learn how to handle people, manage people, deal with finances and all these other areas. And so we're very specific about what we do, but we also want to make sure that it's engaging and people enjoy it. Because if you're just getting lectured at, no one's going to want to pay attention to you, and no one's going to want to learn from you. And especially like in the master's programs and stuff, really trying to turn it into more critical thinking, real world applications that you can take that knowledge you're learning and use it in your job, your career, whatever that might be. And being very strategic about those decisions, I think, is important. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about it. Like, do we need to add another class that's like this? Or is this class too similar? Or what should we add here? But then we're also mindful of what we as professors are really good at. So, like, I want to teach a sponsorship class because I know a lot about that. But if you ask me to teach an esports class, I'd be like, this is not my skill set. And so, not only are we interested in what is going to be the most beneficial for the students, but kind of what our skill set could really do to sort of help those students achieve success, because being an athletic director can help you a lot.
Um, you mentioned earlier the idea of, having skills that you can apply, practical knowledge. Um, this is an impossible question, but I'm going to ask you anyway because I know you can handle it. What is what sort of balance do you look for in, let's say, your classes, the classes that you teach? And again, you probably have a dean that's telling you to an extent what to do. What's your balance? What's your percentage of, you know, knowledge, because there has to be some facts. They have to know some facts, uh, versus, experiential, hands-on, internships, those types of things. Is there, you're the doctor, is there a magic formula that you like, or is it going to vary probably from class to class?
It definitely varies from class to class. It also kind of varies a little bit on the students you have in each class. Like I've taught multiple sections of the same class, and some students really gravitate towards certain activities and other ones don't. But each class, I think, is different. But like you said, they need to learn something. But I think you can constantly be doing, I mean, hopefully they're learning from me. You can constantly be doing experiential learning and helping them through activities and trying different things and role playing or whatever your class might be that can help them learn stuff without them even realizing that they're learning it. And I know that sounds weird, but if you teach them the right way, you can make people constantly learn at the same time. And so for me, I try to think of each class separately and how to make it the most strategic for that class. And so, like when I taught social issues, really trying to bring in real world examples is helpful to get them to engage in it. Where when I teach sales, they actually do a lot of scripts and role playing, and they do a lot of talking with people and back and forth where they're actually practicing that. So each class is kind of set up very differently depending on what you're trying to do. When I teach my collegiate athletics class, a lot of times I put them in a position as an athletic director. I'm like, okay, how would you handle this situation? What would you do if this happened? How would you handle budget cuts? How would you handle cutting programs? And making them actually think about, okay, if I was put in this situation, what would I do and how would I handle it? And then justify to me why you did that. And so they're not necessarily going out into the real world and doing it, but things that really are happening today in athletic departments, how would you handle that situation? And so I don't think there's a one size fits all model for classes, but we do a really good job also of trying to get our students into internships, getting them to really have that experience hands on as well. And then hopefully what they've learned in our classes, they can actually use as whatever their jobs are. And they actually, for us, are required to have an internship to graduate because we want to make sure that they're taking all the knowledge that they're learning from us and then incorporating that somehow.
Right. And that was a great answer. Absolutely. So you did well with that. I told you there wasn't going to be any ambush questions, and then I went out and ambushed you. Um, Chelsea, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners want to reach out and connect with you, pick your brain a little bit more, or just find out more about the University of Alabama program, what's the best way that they can connect?
They can connect with me over LinkedIn. That's a really easy way to do it just because you can find me by searching, I think, Dr. Chelsea Ale on there, or my email address as well. And I can give that to you too if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay, so it's CLALE@ua.edu.
Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes and we'll share that again at the end of the podcast. Let's go and take another break. I know that's shocking for our regular listeners, but we will be coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their great products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Schedule that live web demo. You're going to be very impressed. Sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank our friends at Hometown. Hometown is not just digital ticketing anymore. Go to hometown.com and see how they're changing the game for schools and organizations with their suite of solutions that include, oh, by the way, online ticketing, but they also have fee-free fundraising. They have athletic website construction and a whole lot more. If you're an athletic director, a head coach, or a school administrator, Hometown is going to help you save time, raise more money, and bring your entire community together. To find out more, just go to hometown.com. That's it, hometown.com. And we want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with hundreds of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you also complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. For more information, just go to their website, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. And of course, don't forget to mention the podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Chelsea, you and I were talking during the break about this whole idea of going into an interview and pursuing a job, with confidence, not cockiness. Can you share with our listeners, your, I guess your perspective, your advice, I guess on that particular topic? Because a lot of our listeners are aspiring ADs, some are young, and there's going to be an interview in their future. I talk about it's different when you are interviewing and you have to have that job. I've been in that position in my career. I needed a job. I I was going to say almost anything that was true. But then there's going to be opportunities where you want that job. You don't need it, but you want it. And you're going to make sure that it's the right fit for you. So from your perspective so far in your career, what's your advice on selling yourself during an interview?
Absolutely. So when you said, confidence, not cockiness, I think it's important to be really confident in who you are and knowing that, like knowing what your worth is and knowing what you can bring to an organization or a team or a culture, an atmosphere, but not doing it in a way where you come across as cocky because there's a fine line, but there's a big difference. No one wants you to come in and think that you're better than them, but you want to come in and explain why you would be beneficial to them. And so any skill set, any job you have will create things that you're really good at, things that you're not so good at. You'll learn what you like, what you don't like. But I think going into any job interview, trying to get jobs, being organic and natural is the most important thing. I could pretend like I'm someone that I'm not, but then I'm going to seem robotic, seem a little bit more stressed. It's not going to go well. I make awkward, like weird jokes. I'm goofy, like I say the wrong things sometimes, and I think that's okay. I like the sport of diving. Not everyone cares about that. But I think being open and honest about what you're good at, what you like, what you bring to the table, and being your natural self is huge because we don't want people to dislike us, but you also don't want to pretend you're someone you're not on an interview process. And then all of a sudden that person comes to work for you and you're like, oh, that's not who we hired. When I think about when I recruited athletes too, I always wanted the best athletes, but then I'd bring them on recruiting trips, and the way that they talked to people, the way they interacted with people, the way they handled situations either made me not want to recruit them anymore or actually bring them onto my team, even if they might not be the best athlete. Like I had a diver one time, she was disrespectful to her father, and I was like, nope, I am not bringing you on this team. And I think we have to do the same thing with job interviews. The way you treat everyone. Do you talk to the people that are cleaning their restrooms? Do you say thank you? Do you write a follow-up thank you email? Do you ask questions? Are you respectful? Can you present yourself in a positive, professional way? And the way you handle yourself, I think, is important. But I also think it's important to explain why you should have that job and why you want that job. Don't come into it expecting like you deserve it, but instead, what can you bring to the table and why are you going to make that organization better? You're going to get better from that job, and then you're going to make that job better, hopefully. And how can you do that? And I think that that's really important too, because a lot of times we try to sell ourselves, but just who we are in our skill set and not what we can bring to the table and actually make the culture, the environment better. And then we also want to make sure it's a good fit for both parties. And so being open and honest too, like you might think the job is great for you. Then you go interview and you're like, you know what, this isn't for me. And that's okay. It's okay to say, this isn't the right fit for me. No one's going to be offended by it. But I think the more open, transparent you can be, but also just being really confident in yourself and knowing that you wouldn't have gotten that interview to begin with if you weren't qualified enough for it. And so don't go into it nervous, go into it knowing that they saw something in you to give you that interview in the first place.
Boy, great advice. And again, it's so simple, but it's so frequent that people don't take that simple route. Do you remember any of the the key questions. I tell this story a lot. When I got hired at McClay, I remember the moment where I knew the job was mine. Not in a cocky way, but in a confident way, just being able to read the room. Um, uh, I had done my research. And when I say I'd done my research, I pored over the history of the school, the current history as well, rosters, records of the teams, individual, what grade the athletes were on teams. And I just happened to get a question asked. It was administrators, it was parents, it was coaches. There were some student athletes in there too. And there'd been 5 or 6 questions in the roundtable. This is that final interview. And a mom said, well, Jake, I know your background is football and track. My daughter's a cross country runner. How are you going to help her in her sport? And I said, well, hey, that's a great question. I guess, well, first of all, um, my wife's a Hall of Fame cross country coach, so I know a little bit about the sport. My youngest daughter's currently running, which was true, collegiately in cross country. Um, but I noticed that last year the girls cross country team, they got fourth at state, but the teams that finished ahead, like Christian and Berkeley Prep, and there's somebody else. Almost their entire roster was seniors, and the McClay roster was mostly, sophomore, freshman. You even had an eighth grader on there. So I think the best years for cross country are coming up, and I'm going to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful. And I could just see the heads around the circle, like, wow, this guy did his research, or I heard one person say to another, this is the guy we need to hire. And I could have answered that question for any other sport, for basketball or soccer, because I had done my research. So I could go in there with confidence and not be cocky. Um, did you have a moment like that at Alabama where you knew, hey, this is the place for me, and you felt pretty confident they were going to offer you the job?
So it's similar to that, but a little different. All the interviews I went on when I was looking here in other schools, I dressed for the university. So at Alabama, I wore a houndstooth because that is it's not the color, but it's kind of like the print that everyone wears here. And then we have to do guest lectures. So part of my interview process, I actually have to lecture to students. And so I made my lectures about youth sports, but all the pictures were of Alabama. They were of Tuscaloosa youth athletics. They were of all these different sports teams in the state of Alabama, but all youth sports teams. And the references I used and stuff all related to Alabama athletics, the youth organizations around here and stuff. And so I tried to make it really personal. So it wasn't like I was giving a lecture to anyone. I was giving it specifically to Alabama. And afterwards, people were like, we really noticed like the attention to detail, like between what you wore and what your pictures were and everything. And so to me, it was kind of like I knew that they wanted me to be there because they were just so impressed by like those little things. And now, I've seen different interviews and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, the little things really do matter. It just me putting pictures of Alabama youth athletes compared to stock photos that I find on Google makes a difference. Or me choosing what my outfit is based on the pattern that we like here, I think made the big difference. So no one flat out said it, but everyone was like, you definitely took some time to like really understand Alabama. And for me, I was like, oh, this is a pretty good fit. And I think everyone likes me.
I love it. That's a great idea. Yeah, wearing the school color, I would either have a shirt or a tie that I would always wear school colors. Great, great point. Chelsea, this has been so cool, reconnecting with you. We're gonna have to get you back on the podcast. Great guest, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. We're going to take our final break here for Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director, a brand new leader on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, we're going to see what Dr. Chelsea Ale puts into her new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that type of data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with that frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Hey, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting today with Dr. Chelsea Ale. She's a professor of sport management at the University of Alabama, has a tremendous background as an athlete, as a coach, as a leader. And right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director, a brand new leader on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Chelsea, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Okay, so the first thing that I would say to anyone is understand that not every situation is a one size fits all model. I think as a leader, a role model, you have to realize that people handle situations differently. Some people need you to be a little bit stricter with them. Some need you to explain things a little bit better. Some need you to be a little bit more sympathetic to them. But then each situation you're dealing with also is very unique, and you can't just come at everything the exact same way. And it's really important to understand who you're dealing with, but what the situation is, and then address the needs of it based on that. And not just say, okay, I'm going to be this way at all times, because not every leadership style works for every single situation. And you might like one way better than another, but in that situation, another way might be more beneficial. And to get the most out of whoever you're working with, you have to be able to tailor what you're doing to the people you're working with and the situations that you're in. So that would be my first one. Along those lines, though, I also think it's important to set really strict and clear guidelines and expectations. Now, I don't say you need to come in and be mean and tough, but I think if you hold everyone to the same standards, guidelines, expectations from the very beginning, and everyone knows what to expect from you, like you're going to show up fiercely and fully, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you don't tolerate people being late, you don't tolerate whatever, people will really kind of appreciate that and respect that because they know exactly what they're going to get from you. They know what they need to do for you, but they also know that regardless if they're the best athlete, not the best athlete, the best employee, not the best employee, the football coach versus diving coach, that you're going to hold them to the same standards. And everyone knows that you're going to make sure that those standards are met at all times and that there's no favoritism. Because while we like people differently, if you kind of favor people differently in a job setting or an athletic situation, then you kind of lose respect from people. And so by having that set standards, policies, procedures, expectations right up front, holding everyone to the same standards for whatever it might be, it actually makes it so people kind of respect you more, but then do what you expect them to do. And then it also, regardless if you're the top or the bottom, you know that you either can or cannot do something. And then it kind of keeps everyone fair, even. And then there's no animosity within your organization, which I think is really important as well. And then the third one I would say is that no job is too small or too big. No thing is too small or too big. I never would ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I have gone outside and thrown out hundreds of bags of trash before and gotten my hands dirty, and I have scrubbed floors and I have done all these different things. But I will never ask someone to do something if I'm not willing to do it myself. And I think as an athletic director, as a leader, as a role model, you can't expect people to respect you, to follow you, if you're not willing to get your hands dirty at some points too and do all the little things. But that also includes just kind of like who you talk to, how you talk to them. If you don't pay attention to the interns, the managers, the cleaning staff, the guest service people, they're going to notice that and they're not going to feel welcomed by you. Where if you're willing to sort of chip in, help with the tarps or whatever it might be with your sporting events, people are going to really appreciate you. They're going to respect you. They're going to want to bend over backwards for you. And they're going to want to do anything to make the organization better. But then they're also going to do the same thing because you, as a leader, are the one who's setting that tone, setting that example, and showing that even if you're at the top, no job is too good for you and that you're willing to do it all. And then everyone in your organization will have that mentality too. And I think it creates such a positive culture and environment. And it really makes people look at you as a positive leader. And then they're going to want to follow you, where it's the people that tell people to do stuff that don't actually do anything. They're the ones that struggle a little bit more. So at the end of the day, all of my tools basically relate to being the best version of yourself you can and helping the people around you succeed in all facets. Because if the people underneath you and around you aren't succeeding and doing well, you're never going to be successful and you're not going to enjoy the culture and the environment you're working in. But if you can create this positive culture where everyone supports each other, helps each other, and is really inclusive, it can be a really exceptional experience for you.
Boy, outstanding tools. You're going to make a great athletic director down the road. Okay. Thanks for sharing those with our listeners. Again, Chelsea, this has just been so cool catching up with you. It's not surprising at all to see you've gone on to such great things. Once again, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, find out more, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can connect with Dr. Chelsea Ale?
Well, the easiest way is to connect with me over LinkedIn, which you can just find my name by searching Dr. Chelsea Ale, and then I'm a professor at the University of Alabama. Or you can email me at clale@ua.edu. But it has absolutely been a pleasure. I'm so glad we got to reconnect and talk and talk about how things have changed and where we are. And I'm glad to see that we're both really successful now, and it's been fun.
Well, we are both more successful. Let's say that. We're already successful. Um, Thanks again. We're going to have to get you back on the podcast. We also want to say thanks to our listeners. We do this segment just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices. We also put all of our episodes up on our YouTube channel. So hopefully you'll come back and join us again for more best practices and stories from the world of athletics on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.